بارك على نبينا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله. That I'm going to share with you tonight and talk about a little bit is a very, very famous theme. It may not be one of the major themes. It may not make the first 10, the top 10 list, but it's a famous one amongst people. And I differentiate between what the Quran talks about a lot, meaning it's a theme that you see everywhere in the Quran, and a theme that is just very, very famous. People hear a lot, and they talk about it a lot because it affects their lives. And this theme here, Birr al-Walidain, is a very, very famous theme amongst Muslims, and it's almost a hallmark of our faith as Muslims, something that we stand for very, very heavily and very strongly. And we emphasize with people around us and those who accept Islam the importance of honoring your parents and showing Birr al-Walidain. And it's for sure it's a Quranic theme, meaning you'll find it talked about throughout the Quran almost everywhere. But I find that talking about this topic seems to bring up a lot of emotions and sometimes a lot of anger. It didn't do that before. Like when I was younger, or when I was living in a different country, talking about this topic was much easier, and it was much more joyful. People, listened to this and they became sentimental, and there was a certain social agreement around the topic, so it was an easy one to discuss. If you had nothing to say, or if you were stuck, someone put a microphone in your face, then you just talk about this, and almost everyone will be, nodding their heads with you that yes, Birr al-Walidain and the importance of it and whatnot. And then over a series of, over a couple of years, maybe the last 10 years or so, I started to notice a little bit of a shift in culture. When I talk about this, instead of getting the head nods, I get red faces from some people, and almost borderline disagreement from other people. And then a couple of people who will come up after Salah to tell me to tell their sons or children or daughters that what I said again. Tell him what you just said so he can hear it again, right? They're asking for birr from their children. And that is a concerning element or a phenomenon within our community as Muslims. Because one of the Hadith Jibreel, which is probably one of the most famous ahadith that we have, and it's wajib in my opinion, wajib, every Muslim knows this hadith and knows it well. When he was asked alayhi salatu wasalam about as-sa'a, when it was, and his answer was that the person who you're asking is not more knowledgeable than the person who was asking. I don't know when, I don't have one. But he did point out what he did know alayhi salatu wasalam, which was the ashrat or the alamat, certain things that are going to happen beforehand that will point out to us that it's coming closer, it's getting nearer because of them. And one of them was أن تلد الأمة ربتها, for a lady to give birth to someone who will later on be her boss, who will later on control her. And the majority opinion amongst ulama was that this is a figure of speech talking about uquq, talking about dishonoring your parents or mistreating your parents. And because of that and other pieces of evidence from the Prophet ﷺ's traditions that are authentic, scholars have concluded that amongst the alamat of Qiyam as-Sa'a is uquq al-walidain, is the mistreatment or the dishonoring of parents, which makes this an important topic to cover and to discuss with you. What I'm noticing though, and this is just a disclaimer before I start going through the verses and explaining some of these topics to you, or some of the aspects of this topic to you. Never use the Quran on others when your interest is involved. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate to do that. So a parent should be very careful from using these verses in the Quran about Birr al-Walidain on their children, demanding something from them. I'm not saying they can't, just be very careful when you do that, because you're asking them to follow a command that benefits you, that is in your best interest, where you get more obedience or adherence to the law of Allah, or you get something in it for you. Because the Quran is not supposed to be used that way. So when you read about verses in the Quran that talk about Birr al-Walidain, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to apply those verses upon yourself. Even as a person in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s, when you recite the verses of Birr al-Walidain, Before you project them on your children, you should project them on yourself. Because you still can continue to be bar, you can still honor your parents even after they pass away, even decades after they pass away. There are things you can do to honor them, to honor their name, to honor their legacy, to honor their memory. And a part of that is being the best person. You are the representation of your parents. You represent them on this planet. So representing them well is a big part of their birr. A big part of showing them honor and birr is to represent them well. Care for the ones that they care for. They love all their children. So when you're not speaking to your sibling, or you hate your brother, your sister, you're mistreating them, you are dishonoring them, because they would not be happy with that if they were around. And they probably weren't happy with that when you were doing it during their lives. So a part of their birr is to take care of your siblings and your family name, and honor that, and put an effort into doing it. The example I gave you a couple of nights ago of Sayyidina Yusuf, that he didn't want to punish his siblings for what they did to him, even though almost 10 people out of 10 would have done it. The reason that the scholars point this out is not just his high ethics, but also his birr for his father and his mother. He did not want them to suffer a torn family. He didn't want his family to be torn apart because of him seeking justice or seeking vengeance over those who mistreated him. And I'm just trying to show you how birr al-walidain is everywhere in the Quran. So be careful of that. Birr al-walidain does not mean that you as a parent are allowed to control every aspect of your child's life. It doesn't mean that. It never did. It never did. This is mustahdath. This is, in my opinion, a bid'ah of our time, where we want to interpret birr al-walidain in a way that suits us, that allows us to be in full control of our child's life choices, what they're going to study, and where they're going to live, and who they're going to marry. You have input as a father in terms of who your child marries, but it's still their choice. They still are going to make their choice. You can't force them to make a different choice, or force them out of a choice because of a preference. Your job as a father or a mother for a young groom or a young bride, someone who's looking for marriage, is to advise, is to point out when the person is absolutely not appropriate because of an ethical breach, or a problem in their deen, or a problem in their behaviors, or something that has hurma in it, something that has prohibition attached to it. These are people who don't follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's teaching. You have to stand and push. But when that's all there, but you don't like the family for cultural reasons, or you don't like the person's, how much money they make, or you don't like where they come from, or their age, or something, you don't get to control that. You don't get to pull the card of birr on that. If they want to study something and you don't like what they're studying, you can't pull that card. You have to be careful of what you use this for. The haqq of a parent upon a child is for the child to be there for the parent regarding their needs at all times. Meaning, the haqq of birr upon me to my dad and my mum is for me to be there for them, for their needs. If they have financial needs, or social needs, or emotional needs, or psychological needs, or whatever needs they have, I have to be there to support them. Their haqq upon me is not that I have to live however they want me to live. Now, if you can do that, great, but that's not required of me. It's not birr, it's not uquq. If my father says, I want you to study this in university, and I say, I don't like that, I don't want to study it. That's not uquq. And it doesn't matter how much my father tells that to me. Oh, you're aq because you didn't study this, or you're aq because you didn't. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect, because that's not your domain. You don't get to, that's not how this works. If you want my wealth, if you're in need of anta wa maluka li abik, if he wants my money is all for my father. I'll give you everything. I'll take care. You and my mom will be under my care for the rest of my life. Everything I own, I'll give you. But when it comes to my personal choices in my life, the choices that I'm doing for the right reason, is just maybe not your preference. That's not birr and uquq. And I run into a lot of trouble with this. Parents coming forward with complaints about their children, and I sometimes can't really side on the parents' side. I can't. I want to side on the parents' side, but I can't, because what you're asking for is ridiculous. Because they're doing nothing wrong. They're behaving very well. They have their priorities straight. They're making good choices. There's just something about their appearance or something about their personal life that you don't like. You can't use the birr card for that. So be careful as a father and as a mother, because birr al-walidain is so sacred in our deen. When you keep on playing the card, every time things don't go your way, you outplay it, you overuse it, and you ruin the sanctity of it. Just like the imam or a sheikh, if everything is haram, 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 it loses its sanctity. The word becomes, the word is no longer meaningful to people who are listening to it because you overused it. Everything is like that. So people stop listening to you altogether because they don't see the sanctity or the sacredness or the holiness of this word. And bir al-walidain, my God, is that a sacred word or not? That's a sacred concept in our deen. So treat it with the sanctity that it deserves, both as a son and a daughter towards your parents, and as a parent towards your children. Make sure that you continue to protect the sanctity of this by only involving this concept when it should be involved. Not every time your child decides to do something that you don't necessarily desire. They are their own person. They are going to make choices that you don't like. It's just the reality of life. And I get it. I get that it's hard. I understand. I am not arguing with that. But it's not a good reason for you to continuously play this card. And before I go into the verses, I just wanted to share that because I think it's important for us to contemplate that and reflect upon it. So I have 3 sets of verses. The first verse that we're going to go over exists in Surah Al-Kahf. We're going to hear it in the first set of 4 rak'at, inshallah, tonight, and we'll enjoy. Surah Al-Kahf is a beautiful surah. This is the 15th night of Ramadan. It's the end of the first half. Now, at the first half, you are basically welcoming Ramadan. The second half, you're bidding farewell. Right? Starting tomorrow, we bid Ramadan farewell. We start to count down to the end of it. So cherish this night because it's the last night where we're welcoming this beautiful month into our lives. This blessed time, we are welcoming it into our existence, and it's a beautiful thing. Starting tomorrow, we'll start saying bye-bye to something that we don't know if we'll see again or not. So to respect this night and what it is. The verse that I'm going to share with you in Surah Al-Kahf, وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. Musa and Al-Khadr alayhim as-salatu was-salam, they had an interesting interaction in Surah Al-Kahf that I think most of you are aware of the story. And Al-Khadr is the symbolization of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qada. That's what Al-Khadr in this abd that Allah talks about, that Musa is going to walk around and walk with and learn from and observe. He symbolizes in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree, Allah's knowledge, that which we don't understand and don't know. You can't learn from Al-Khadr because Al-Khadr murdered a child. So that's not something that you're going to do. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qada. Someone lost their lives. Right? And Musa is asking the question not in terms of why did you kill him, but why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want to take this life of this child? So that question that comes to mind when children die, like why are their lives going away? There's many reasons. Sometimes it's for the benefit of the family. You don't know. The point is that you just don't know. You don't know what the answer is. You don't know why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes someone's life away at a certain point. One of the things that happened in this story is that they went to a village, and after walking for a long period of time, and they were both thirsty and hungry, and they asked for sustenance from the people of the village. Anything, just maybe a cup of water, something to eat. Diyafa. It's known in that part of the world, till this day, that if you knock on the door asking for diyafa, you're asking to be, asking for hospitality, asking for someone to take you in and offer you some sustenance, then that they will do that. Sometimes up to 3 days, no questions asked. So Musa alayhi salam with Al-Khadr, they went and they asked for that. And the people of this village or this place were very stingy and very cheap. And they were just not good, and they said no. And they were refused. They were not brought into any of the homes. They came to a place to rest, and the place that they rested at was an old wall. It was a wall that half of it had fallen down. So Al-Khadr rolled up his sleeves, and he started preparing the cement and preparing the labin, and he started rebuilding the wall. And Musa is saying, "What are you doing? Why do we? This is the worst village I've ever been to in my life. We asked for water, they didn't give us. Like these people are garbage. Why would we absolutely don't want to fix anything for them? I absolutely don't want to repair anything that's broken in their village, and especially not for free. Maybe if they pay us so we can eat and drink, maybe we do it that way, but not for free." So Al-Khadr at that point told him, هذا فراق بيني وبينك. We're done. I told you, don't question me every time I do something. Just play along and I'll explain things to you later. And Musa alayhi salam, he's trying to make sense of what's happening. It's a very important story, by the way. I'm not going to explain it all tonight. There's a lot in this story that needs to be fleshed out and explained. But generally speaking, Musa alayhi salam was trying to understand things logically, and sometimes Allah's decree, His choices in the world, subhanahu wa ta'ala, cannot be understood that way. You'll understand them later, but right then and there you can't make sense of them. Why are you drilling a hole in poor people's ship? Why are you taking a life of a child? Why are you rebuilding a wall to a bunch of, why? I don't understand. So Khadr told him, هذا فراق بيني. We're done. No more. You lose my companionship and my mentorship. You're not coming with me anymore. But I will explain to you the 3 incidents that caused you to lose your cool. Some scholars say that Musa attended more than just these 3 incidents. And he was quiet. He didn't say anything. That the Quran just pointed out the 3 incidents where he didn't quiet down, if that makes sense. That Musa alayhi salam spent more time with Khadr than what the surah is telling you. But the other times where he attended things, he didn't object. He just watched and he listened. But the Quran points out the 3 times where Musa alayhi salam is like, nope, I don't. What is this? I don't understand. Why would you do this? This doesn't make any sense. So the first 2 he explained to Musa. The last one, his explanation was, وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارِ. As for the wall that we rebuilt, that you found, you couldn't find the space in your heart to build with me because you didn't like the people and you were hungry and tired. أَمَّا الْجِدَارِ فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ. It belonged to 2 orphan boys that lived in this city or in this village. وَكَانَ تَحْتَهُ كَنْزٌ لَهُمَا. And under this wall, there was a treasure of some sort. There was wealth, either hidden by their father, or it just existed there. And this wall was in a land that they owned, that these children owned. Yatimain, they were orphaned, their father had passed away. And under this wall was a treasure of some sort. وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. And that's why I chose this ayah. And their father was a person of mindfulness of God. He was a man of God. He was pious. He was a good person. صالحة. And because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ أَن يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُمَا. Your Lord wanted them to grow up, to become strapping young lads. They can defend themselves and they can command their own wealth. وَيَسْتَخْرِجَ كَنْزَهُمَا رَحْمَةً مِّن رَبِّكَ. And then they pull out from under their wall the treasure that is theirs, out of Allah's mercy. And then he says at the end of it, Khadr, he says, وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. I did none of this, by the way, based on my own choice. It was the command of Allah. It's Allah's decree. It's Allah's qada. ذَلِكَ تَأْوِيلُ مَا لَمْ تَسْطِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. That is the explanation, the interpretation of that which you could not be patient with me about and persevere. The idea was that had they not rebuilt the wall was falling over. It was decaying. With time, over the next year, would decay even more. And then they would have found that treasure early. But because they're ghulaimain yatimain, they're 2 orphan children, they weren't going to be able to control that wealth because they were too young. So people in the village were going to control the wealth for them. We already know what type of people exist in this village. Do we want them controlling the wealth of these two orphans? No, we don't want these people to touch this wealth at all. So that's why he rebuilt the wall, alayhi salam. That's why he did it. Musa didn't understand it, of course, because he didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle. He didn't see what's coming later on. He didn't know what existed under. And this is really what's important in life, is you don't know really anything. Like I don't know anything. Maybe in ta'alim, you know, I know nothing. I know very little. Very little. Like the slither of knowledge that I have is so small that it can't even be seen with the naked eye. We don't know much of anything. The little that we know, we have to, we take it, we build on it, and we improve ourselves, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-allamul ghuyub, He knows all, and there's so much information that is happening right now, that happened in the past, and can happen in the future, that we have no access to, that we don't understand. So we don't know what's best for us or others. All we can do is try our best. All we can do is plan things and try to do the best we can in our lives, but that's as far as it goes. Al-Khadr said, the reason that we're doing this is وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. Their father was a good man. And that's the barakah that a father will have, a parent will have on their children. The barakah of a pious parent that will leave on their children and the children of their children. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to honor our parents, it's because you are living through the barakah of the hard work that they put in. of the efforts that they exhausted. This is a Quranic concept that you find all throughout the Quran. But Allah also talks about the Sahaba whose parents stayed mushrikeen. So it's not like if you're listening to me and your parents aren't Muslim, for example, or they're Muslim but they're not doing well. Many of the Sahaba had a similar problem. They had a similar problem of their parents not being Muslim altogether, sometimes even standing in war against them. And they were still expected to benefit from this verse. They were still expected to benefit from this verse. Understand that the barakah, sometimes they've done good things in their lives. And the good things that they've done will continue to benefit you in your life. It's something that you did nothing to earn or deserve. There's no reward attached from this to you at all. It's just there. Your parent, they did something good, and you are now reaping the benefits, the fruit of the barakah of what they did in their lives. And for this gentleman, these two ghulamain yatimain, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved their wealth for them because وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. You could easily talk about this ayah and not have that phrase there. You could read the verse and drop that phrase, and the verse would still make a lot of sense. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to point out to us why this is happening for them. Yes, they are two young orphans and their wealth is there. But the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to save their wealth for them is because their father was a man of piety. Honor your parents, because you don't know how many good things have happened to you in your life because of them. Because you don't know right now, as you sit here, how many good things have come your way. How many bad things have been held back because of the barakah of your parents. You don't know. Because of the salah of your parents. Because of the goodness that they had in their hearts, or something good that they did in their lives, or some just positive karma. And I use that word because it's from a different faith, but the concept is the same. What goes around comes around. You put in goodness in this world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you back goodness. This is how the whole globe functions. So you don't know how many things are happening to you that are positive, that are khair, because of the barakah of your parents. So make sure that you honor them. And I love this ayah because it teaches you from the other side of things. Those ghulamain yatimain, here's the question I have to pose for you. Did they know anything about this? Right? Like these ghulamain yatimain, they grew up. Did anyone come and tell them later on, by the way, Musa and Khidr built this wall and the reason was 1, 2, 3? No, they just grew up, became young men, were fixing their land, took out the wall so they can put something else in, and found a treasure and became wealthy. And lived their lives feeling wealthy, and they're very happy with the wealth that they had. I bet you they probably didn't even know it was because their father was a good man. And that's what I'm trying to point out to you. How many things have you enjoyed in the success of, or the khair, or the barakah of, not knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did this because وَكَانَ أَبُوكَ صَالِحًا, or وَكَانَتْ أُمُّكَ صَالِحًا. It's because of the barakah of your parents, or maybe your grandparents, or maybe your great-grandparents. You don't know, so honor them, because you never know what good came your way because of them. And I find this to be an absolutely beautiful concept in the Quran. The second set of verses that we're going to share with you tonight, that we'll recite here in the second set of 4 rak'at, inshallah ta'ala, is the conversation that occurs between Abu al-Anbiya, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, and his father. And this is the part of the Quran where we have the most detail of this conversation. You find it elsewhere in the Quran. I mean, you hear Ibrahim, إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ وَقَوْمِهِ مَا هَذِهِ التَّمَاثِيلُ الَّتِي أَنْتُمْ لَهَا عَاكِفُونَ, or whatever. Like you'll find verses in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell us Ibrahim spoke to his father. And وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ لِأَبِيهِ آزَرَ أَتَتَّخِذُ أَصْنَامًا آلِهَةً. He'll speak to his father about something. But in these verses here, it's different. The conversation is of a different level. وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. And remember in the book, Ibrahim, indeed, he was a man of great honesty and truthfulness, and he was a prophet. إِذْ قَالَ لِأَبِيهِ يَا أَبَتِ لِمَ تَعْبُدُ مَا لَا يَسْمَعُ وَلَا يُبْصِرُ وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْكَ شَيْئًا. Ibrahim's heart was broken in his life, that his father was not on the same page he was on. It was very hard for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had granted him clarity. Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلِيَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُوقِنِينَ. He saw Allah's majesty and kingdom. And he had clarity on who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was. And he wanted his father to get on board, and his father wasn't listening. His father was throwing him out. He was cursing him out. He was he wanted people to punish him for this. So he would come and he would speak to his father in this very famous passage in the Quran, pleading with his father one last time to the best of his ability to get his father just to consider. And he would use this term. He would say, Ya abati. Ya abi is my father. Ya abati, adding the ta, adding ta للترقيق, as the scholars will say. للترقيق meaning to soften the heart. Right? It's used to soften the heart. We do that. It's used in Arabic a lot. You add a certain ta, for certain names you can add a ta, and it will soften the way sometimes removing a ta. For example, Aisha, you remove it, Aish, and that's the way to soften the name of speaking. So the Arab use these little tricks in how they speak. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, who didn't speak Arabic, but used a phrase in his language that meant the same thing. That was talking to his father using ism dala. You know what I mean? Meaning calling your father, not saying Baba, using a different, something that makes him happy. My 3-year-old decided that I am Bobby from now on. And I told him it's either Daddy or Baba. I don't like this, but this is what he chooses. This is his, he comes up with this. It's a dala. I mean, you call someone something that makes you feel good. And it makes them feel good too, even if they act like they don't. They enjoy it because it shows a certain degree of closeness. So Ibrahim alayhi salam is speaking to his father, and he's using this dala, like he's calling him in a name, in a way that is not just respectful, but also is very close. It's loving. Ya abati, my beloved father. لِمَ تَعْبُدُ مَا لَا يَسْمَعُ وَلَا يُبْصِرُ. Why are you worshiping? Why are you devoting your life to something that doesn't hear and doesn't see and cannot help you in any way? وَلَا يُغْنِي عَنْكَ شَيْئًا. يَا أَبَتِ إِنِّي قَدْ جَاءَنِي مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَا لَمْ يَأْتِكَ فَاتَّبِعْنِي أَهْدِكَ صِرَاطًا سَوِيًّا. Oh, my beloved father, indeed I have received a certain amount of knowledge that you have not received. So it's not your fault. He's telling him it's not your fault that you believe this. I just received something. I wouldn't have known either, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I received something. So follow me, go with me. أهدك صراطا سويا. I will allow you, I will help you to walk a path that is balanced, that is beautiful. يا أبتي لا تعبد الشيطان إن الشيطان كان للرحمن عصيا. Oh, my beloved father, don't follow a shaitan. Don't follow the steps of someone who does not love you and does not care for you. Indeed, a shaitan has always been disobedient to the one who is most merciful, Al-Rahman, and he'll use Allah, his name is Al-Rahman. In Surah Maryam, you'll find this name because it's a name of ease, it's a name of beauty, it's a name that will bring the heart closer. Ya abati, inni akhafu an yamassaka adhabun min al-Rahmani fatakuna lish-shaytani waliya. Oh my father, I am scared for you that if you follow shaitan, then you get punished yawm al-qiyamah. And you end up on the wrong side. You're not on the side of the malaika and the good. You're on the side of shaitan. Taking the verses that we find, or the way that Ibrahim alayhi salam talks here, or he spoke to his father, first of all, he asked a logical question. He asked it in a respectful way, challenging the idea. And then he established why it is that he thinks his father should listen to him. So when you come to me and you're complaining how your parents are doing this or doing that and you don't like it, your job is not to fix your parents. Your job is not to fix them or to change them, right? And not even necessarily guide them. You should try, but it's not your job. Parents aren't going to listen to their children most of the time. Most of the time, a parent is not going to listen to their child in terms of wanting to change. It's just the reality of life. So when you come to me and you're upset that my parents are doing this and doing that and not changing, it was never your job to fix them to begin with. Your job is to honor them, to help them and support them. Keep them out of trouble to the best of your ability. Help them function as well as they can. Fixing your parents, pointing out how they're wrong in this and wrong in that, it almost never works. I've never seen it work. It doesn't. Ibrahim alayhi salam, the reason that he tried is because there was an external force here. There was an external source. He told him, إِنِّي قَدْ جَاءَنِي مِنَ الْعِلْمِ مَا لَمْ يَأْتِكَ. I have received something that has tipped the scales here. Otherwise, you are more wise than me, and you are more knowledgeable than me. But I received something that you didn't, and this tips the scales. So I want you to at least listen to me. I love you, and I want the best for you. Let me at least help you here, because I have something that you don't. And I'm telling you in your life that if you do perform something similar, meaning if you go and you do increase your knowledge to the point where you have outlearned your parents on something, they'll listen to you most of the time, because that will be apparent in the way you live your life. But just objecting to something that you don't necessarily agree with, or because the culture of the country that you live in is not similar to the culture that they grew up with, and you want them to adhere to that culture and is not the appropriate manner. It's not going to work, and there's lack of adab in doing it. Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he tried to help his dad, he had to point out that it's not because I am more knowledgeable than you, and I know more than you, and I'm smarter than you, and I have figured things out in less time than you have. You've been around for 70 years, I've been around for 30, and I figured it all out. And you've been here for 70, you haven't. No, that's disrespectful and that's arrogant. Ibrahim is saying, no, the only reason that I'm saying this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قَدْ جَاءَنِي مِنَ الْعِلْمِ, I received knowledge that you, oh my father, I don't want you to be with the shaitan. Showing interest in someone not being on the wrong side. It's not that I want your support for me. It's not about me. I don't want you to be in the wrong position. Yeah. And then showing fear, right? So he asked the logical question. He established the premise of why he's doing this. He pointed out what he does not want for the other person. And then he showed his fear for them. إِنِّي أَخَافُ أَن يَمَسَّكَ عَذَابٌ, I'm scared that you're going to end up being punished, and that's going to break my heart. I don't want you to do that. A beautiful, beautiful way of him speaking to his father. The response of his dad, قال أراغب أنت عن آلهتي يا إبراهيم لئن لم تنتهي لأرجمنك وهجرني مليا. He said, oh Ibrahim, do you not want my false gods anymore, my gods anymore? If you do not stop with this narrative that you are bringing, I will stone you, and I will disassociate myself from you, and I will kick you out, and I don't want you out. You're not my son anymore. Get out. So the response of Ibrahim alayhi salam, قال سلام عليك سأستغفر لك ربي إنه كان بي حفيا وأعتزلكم. Said, peace be upon you, meaning I still love you, and I still want the best for you, even though you're being very harsh with me. I love you, and I will ask Allah to forgive you. Allah has been so generous with me. I'm going to ask Him to forgive you, and وأعتزلكم, and I'll step away if that's what you want. It was only later that Ibrahim was told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't do that anymore. وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه فلما تبين له أنه عدو لله تبرأ منه إن إبراهيم لأواه حليم. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, because he promised his father in this verse that I will make istighfar for you, he made istighfar for him. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, those who denounce Allah altogether, don't make istighfar. You can say rahmatullah, you use Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, it encompasses everything and everyone. But istighfar is specific. For you to ask for forgiveness for someone requires the person to have actually wanted Allah's forgiveness to begin with. But it shows you the way Ibrahim alayhi salam, who had a father who wasn't just not Muslim, who was someone who was trying to get Ibrahim not to be Muslim. His father, he participated in getting Ibrahim thrown into the fire. To that degree, he was opposed to him and opposed to what he was doing. And yet Ibrahim spoke to him with the most respect. And when the response was not appropriate, Ibrahim's response was also very respectful. And he promised him that he's going to do his best for him. This is the adab. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did for Abu Talib. He sat with Abu Talib. فقال كلمة قلها أحاج لك بها عند الله أنافح لك بها عند الله. A word, just say the word. Just give me the word and I'll take care of you. يوم القيامة. I will fight for you. I won't move. I won't move until you're with me. Just give me the word. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's hard. It's a different type of pain when you lose someone ala ghayri millat al-Islam. It's a very different type of pain. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not allow you to ever taste it in your life. Say Ameen. To lose someone that you love, not Muslim, it's a very different type of pain. A pain that is hard to even reconcile with anything that you go through in life. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant our parents and our spouses and our children and our siblings and our families, all of them, shahadat at-tawheed, la ilaha illallah. The final verses that I want to share with you that we'll recite in the last 4 rak'at in this in tonight's tarawih is an ayat in surat Taha, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to Musa alayhi salam. And he's reminding Musa. He's telling him, إِذْ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّكَ مَا يُوحَى. Oh Musa, you think we're going to send you to Fir'aun to be destroyed? You think I told you, Musa, go stand in front of Fir'aun and you're all scared. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي يَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِّسَانِي يَفْقَهُوا قَوْلِي وَاجْعَل لِّي وَزِيرًا مِّنْ أَهْلِي هَارُونَ أَخِي أُشْدُدْ بِهِ أَزْرِي. He went on this long dua, Musa alayhi salam. What? Fir'aun? Oh Allah, grant me this and grant me that. And I want Harun, I don't know how to speak, and I need this and I did. Musa got very upset. He got scared and he got into a little bit of a knot. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, all right, calm down. Remember, إِذْ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّكَ مَا يُوحَى. Remember when I revealed to your mother what was revealed to her, because it wasn't Jibreel alayhi salam, it was a form of ilham, or even if it was wahi. The Asha'ira are okay with Anbiya being ladies, and it is something that they accept within their school of thought. أَنْ يَقْذِي فِيهِ فِي التَّابُوتِ فَقْذِي فِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ. Put him in a coffin and then throw him into the Nile. Imagine a mother doing this. A mother taking a piece of herself and throwing her child, her baby, into the Nile. فَقْذِي فِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ فَلْيُلْقِهِ الْيَمُّ بِالسَّاحِلِ يَأْخُذْهُ عَدُوٌّ لِي وَعَدُوٌّ لَهُ. And may the Nile wash him up upon the shore, and may an enemy of mine and an enemy of his take him. وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِّنِّي. And he speaks to Musa. He said, "Oh Musa, I have bestowed upon you my love." MashaAllah. This is what he told Musa. I have bestowed upon you, I've thrown upon you the blanket of my love. وَلِتُصْنَعَ عَلَى عَيْنِي. So that you may be brought up under my eye, under my supervision. عَلَى عَيْنِي. إِذْ تَمْشِي أُخْتُكَ فَتَقُولُ هَلْ أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى مَنْ يَكْفُلُهُ. As your sister walked around the city, trying to get them. Do you want someone to take care of a nanny? Someone to take care of the kid? You guys are busy. Asiya was the wife of Fir'aun. They were both busy. They had things to do. Do you want a nanny? Someone who will breastfeed and take care of. فَرَجَعْنَاكَ إِلَىٰ أُمِّكَ كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. And we returned you back to your mother, so that her eye, she may find the cool of her eye by seeing you. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ. And she doesn't have that sorrow and pain in her heart. Alayhi salam. In Surat Al-Qasas, there is an absolutely heart-wrenching description of this part of the story, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا. And the consciousness of Musa became empty. I mean, she couldn't think anymore. She wasn't hearing, she wasn't seeing, she wasn't able, like you would come by and say, this is the narrations you find in the books of tafsir. They would come by and say, كيف حالك يا فلان? How are you doing? And she would just sit there staring into nothing. Someone would stand in front of her and give her something to eat, and she would just sit there. She had nothing, she turned blank. فارغة. She lost her. Why? Because the love of a mother to her son. The love of a parent to their child. You don't really understand what your parents have done for you until you have a child yourself. Once you have your own child, your perspective and your attitude and your opinion about your parents, it changes dramatically. It changes very, very quickly. As a kid, you don't understand it, and you're objecting to this and objecting to that, and you don't like what they did here. But once you have a child and you walk through life and you see the difficulties that you carry, you see how hard it is to actually not ruin this child's life and not end up throwing them off the third story of a balcony sometime. You understand how hard it is to actually hold on to the family and care for them. You appreciate what they did for you in your life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Musa alayhi salam, He's pointing out to him, remember how I made sure I took care of you when you were a child. And remember your mother and how much she cared for you, and how her heart was going, how empty she felt, and how much pain she was in because of the fact that you were not there. She sent your sister to look to see if we can get you back, and then when we sent you back, كَيْ تَقَرَّ عَيْنُهَا, and she found the cool of her eye. وَلَا تَحْزَنْ, and the pain and the sorrow in her heart was removed when she saw you again. And this is the love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for a mother. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a mother that way, then what should the children feel towards their mothers? And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was asked, مَنْ أَحَقُّ النَّاسِ بِحُسْنِ صُحْبَتِي or صَحَابَتِي? And both wordings are correct. The man asked him, Ya Rasulullah, who deserves my companionship the most? The best years of my companionship, the time that I spent. So he told him, your mother. Because he was thinking of something else, like as-salihun or Ahlul Quran. Who should I spend my time with? Who should be my companion the most in my life? Spend time with your mother. And then he asked again, your mother. And then he asked again, your mother. And then your father. If you're going to not be with your mother, then be with your father. They gave you the best years of their lives. So you owe them something from the best years of yours. You owe them something of the best years of yours. They're not going to ask for every moment of it. But for you to go on week upon week upon week with no care, with no interest in offering them the years of where you are strong and where you are capable. They took care of you when you were not. They took care of you when you were not. So now that you are, you have no time for them. This Quranic theme of honoring parents is something that we can talk about for years, honestly, not even for hours. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us birr al-walidain in our lives. And grant us children who will show us birr to us in our lives. Allahumma ameen. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
Allahu